Could this terrifying encounter with one of the most elusive creatures in North America have been buried for over 4 decades? And if so, what other unknown creatures are hiding in our national parks? Welcome to Parks Unseen. I'm your host, Liam Wolf. Sasquatch, Yeti, Monkey Man. Bigfoot goes by 58 different names in countries scattered around the world. And in this digital age, we're more primed than ever to finally catch a clear glimpse of the most elusive species of all. But has Bigfoot finally been caught on camera? Perhaps. With the right trail camera and the keen eye of a skilled hunter, irrefutable scientific proof is within arm's reach. Let's take a look at rare footage that recently surfaced, capturing alleged encounters with the most famous and beloved cryptid of all. This is Francis Peak at 9,500 feet elevation. Filmed from the town of Farmington 3 miles below, this stabilized footage emerged in February 2023 thanks to YouTube channel Rocky Mountain Sasquatch. A figure appears to be traversing the snowy mountain landscape at an astonishing speed, impossible to achieve by any human being. And with an astounding 90-inch deep snowpack on this mountain, it's hard to imagine any animal with the height or muscle to power through 7.5 feet of windswept and iced-over snow at a pace like this. Locals in the area confirmed the magnitude of this discovery and were immediately put on high alert. In fact, just hours after this footage was released, a helicopter pilot in the area grabbed his camera and filmed the creature's tracks from above. Look at the giant footprints the creature left behind. According to our reputable sources, this trackway is consistent with most credible Bigfoot trackways when the creature is running or moving at a brisk pace. We've never seen anything like this. What do you think of this footage? Is there any reasonable explanation?
It's an elusive creature. Alright, just squat it down.
As passengers took in the sights from a scenic train ride between Durango and Silverton, they were met with a surprising addition to the landscape. One Florida man captured this video, which immediately went viral. Although many skeptics insist it was probably just a local man in a Bigfoot suit having some fun, others hold out hope for the possibility of the real thing. In 2015, a hiker named John was taking in the beauty of Payson Canyon and stopped to film a portion of the river alongside the trail. Suddenly, a noise coming from the trees above caught his attention. When he turned his camera, what he saw stopped him in his tracks. John originally captured the footage in the spring of 2015, but claims he was too afraid and embarrassed to show anyone because he didn't want to sound crazy. But thanks to the support he found in the encounters community, he was encouraged to finally share his experience publicly. In the United States, the only state to not have an encounter recorded in the Bigfoot Field Research Organization files is Hawaii. Washington ranks at the top of the list with over 700 reports, followed by California with about 460, Florida with almost 350, and Ohio with over 300. After the explosive report we uncovered in our last episode, we began hearing from hundreds of viewers around the country, each with their own story to share. If you have an encounter to report, we want to hear from you too. Email monstermythtv@gmail.com for info on how to submit. One viewer in Paxton, Texas wrote to us with a shocking report of his own. He survived a horrific close encounter with a treacherous beast when a routine hog hunting trip went sideways. This account was documented with and investigated by the North American Wood Ape Conservancy an organization dedicated to proving the existence of the animal commonly referred to as Bigfoot.
I was in my little motorboat on the Sabine River on my way to my normal hunting area when I noticed all these hogs rooting along the edge of the river. And I stopped to check it out. It seemed like a pretty good spot, so I scouted the area, decided on stand locations, and returned the next morning to set up and hunt. It was about 5:30 a.m. I put out sliced apples and table scraps to hold the hogs for a few minutes for a shot. I got in a tree stand and waited for the woods to settle down and the sun to rise. At sunup, I heard hogs rooting around, working the river's edge towards me. I could first see them to the left, about 45 degrees, about 50 yards out. No clear shot. Waiting for them to get to my bait area, when I noticed movement to my right, about 80 yards out. Putting my rifle scope on it, I could see only the side of something's face. It was dark, hair covered, slowly moving its head around, looking in the direction of the hogs. I could see most of its body. It was huge, 7 or 8 feet tall, standing on 2 legs, and covered in reddish-brown fur about 3 inches long. There were a few leaves and twigs and debris tangled in the fur, as if it had rolled or slept on the ground. It was staring intensely at the hogs from behind a tree. I was afraid of this thing, but I tried to keep my scope on it, get a better look at its features, try to figure out what it is, or what it was. Its arms and legs were very large and bulky. It had like no waistline, like the body was the same large bulk from top to bottom, and I'm pretty certain it was a female. It looked like it had breasts. Only the nipple area was hairless. The hair on the breast was much shorter and thinner than the fur on the rest of the body. So the hogs were moving in, feeding towards my bait area, while this animal was working its way towards the hogs. She was quick, I mean really agile, and kept disappearing between the trees with a quick leap. It would crouch down on all fours before springing up and landing on 2 feet at the base of one tree, holding onto the tree trunk from behind and slowly peeking around at the hogs before leaping to the next one and the next. See, this is what made me notice how unusual the hands and feet were. They weren't like paws or a bear or a wolf, and there were no claws. They looked more like a human's hands, except the fingers and toes were set wide apart and the thumb was set further back, protruding almost at the wrist area, with long yellowish finger and toenails. Anyway, this creature continued stalking the hogs until they were about 30 yards apart and almost directly in front of me at about 40 yards. Suddenly, the animal dropped all fours, bunched up her rear legs, and leaped. She took 2 leaps to reach the hogs, and during that second leap, let out a horrifying scream. Before you could blink, this thing raised an arm and smacked one of the hogs, knocking it through the air into one side of the tree. As the squealing hog bounced off the tree, the creature pounced on it, beating it with its fist like a person pounding on a desk. I could hear bones crunching with each hit. Now, all this happened very fast. About 4 seconds from first leap to dead hog. The quickness of the attack was just terrifying. Very unnerving. The 3 live hogs were in full flight. The animal picked up the dead hog, tucked it under one arm, and started walking off when it let out this noise like, The call was immediately answered by another creature 200 to 300 yards out with a shorter, which was also terrifying to think there might be others out there, nearby. After a couple more steps in the direction of the answer, she stopped, dropped the hog, and turned to look back at my tree. I have never been more afraid in my life. I tried to keep the scope on the animal's head in case it came after me. It looked right at me with these solid dark brown eyes and cocked its head to one side. Her face had a curious expression, as if studying me. Then she showed her teeth, letting out a soft growl sound like. Then she turned back to pick up the hog and walked off into the woods with a stoop-shouldered gait in no hurry whatsoever, as if I didn't even exist. I sat in the tree stand for another 30 minutes or so, trying to calm myself. The woods had gone dead quiet after the attack scream. Squirrels stopped feeding, birds, frogs, crickets. It was like we were all holding our breath. Finally, I figured if this thing wanted me, it would have already knocked me out of the tree stand. So I got down, went to find my hunting partner, who was about a quarter to a half mile away. He'd come running when he heard the attack scream and both whooping calls. But, except for some bloody dirt where the hog got pounded, the creature disappeared, without a trace.
What would you have done if you were in Mitch's shoes? Would you have chased the creature? Would you have put down your gun to grab a camera? Or would you have chosen personal safety over photo evidence? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Our next report comes from Danbury, Wisconsin, where famous cryptozoologist Linda S. Godfrey first investigated alarming encounters with an unusual dog-like species in the town of Elkhorn, now known through her most famous work as the Beast of Bray Road. Thanks to our friends at Audiobooks Now, we have some discount codes listed in the video description. If you'd like to listen to Godfrey's fascinating encounters in some of her most popular audiobooks. Although Dogman sightings have been reported from all over the country, Wisconsin remains a hotspot for some of the most threatening and violent encounters with the mysterious Dogman cryptid. Perhaps emboldened by its lack of natural predators, the Dogman in this chilling report nearly attacked 2 women in their vehicle. This is Mary Ann's story.
This is a difficult thing for me to write about. I haven't talked about my encounter since it happened, and I had no idea what a cryptid even was until I finally told my son about it, and then he told me, and now I know. All these years, I thought what I'd seen was just a very deformed bear. At least that's what I convinced myself of. But after we watched a few of your episodes together, my son encouraged me to contact you and finally share my story. My family had a cabin on Long Lake, just south of Danbury, Wisconsin, and most evenings, just about an hour before dark, some of us enjoyed going for deer rides. We had a route we would always use, and it took us through a wildlife preserve, and then, we ended up on that road that goes from Danbury to Hinckley, Minnesota. And the road through the preserve always made me uncomfortable, because it was a narrow gravel road and there was a swampy bog on both sides, and in order to turn the car around, you would need to go down a very narrow drive to a parking area for hunters. I'd only been to one of those parking areas once, and it creeped me out. We never saw deer on that road, so we typically went fast in that area, and we would have avoided that gravel road altogether, but we always saw deer just before the preserve and just after. So, on this particular evening, it was just my sister-in-law Amy and I that went on the deer ride. And just so you know, I was driving that night, and I never drink and drive, so I was 100% sober. It was a hot night, and we had our windows down because the air conditioner wasn't working, of course. And I was driving a very large car, a 1998 Cadillac. And we had just started down that creepy gravel road when we noticed something standing in the road about half a mile ahead of us. As we got closer, it appeared to be dark gray. It also appeared to have an elongated muzzle. It had its back to us, but it was a little sideways, so we could tell it was eating something in the road. I stopped the car and kept my foot on the brake. Now, this animal had very wide, very muscular shoulders, and its fur was much longer than a bear's. Its ears were pointy, kind of like a German shepherd's, and stood straight up on top of its head. Now, I know that this is going to sound crazy, but I swear it looked like this animal had human hands. It was holding a small dead animal, a rabbit, I think, and I started rambling to Amy out loud. I think I was just verbalizing every thought that came into my head. I was like, "What is that?" And I totally freaked out. And that's when the animal noticed us. It started to turn its head, and I quickly turned on my headlights. And it wasn't even dark yet, but I wanted to see this thing better, And when it turned and faced my car, the headlights caught its eyes, and I could not believe what I was seeing. Its eyes were glowing like a reddish orange in the headlights, and I freaked. I mean, to me, this creature was just demonic. And then it stood straight up on its back legs, and as this thing moved, it was like jerky. You know, like it wasn't comfortable in its own skin. It was not a natural movement. And then the animal sprinted at my car, came straight at me, and I just gunned it. I gunned my car right at it. I was in a panic. I was absolutely terrified. And this animal then kind of turned to the right of the car and then dropped to all fours. Then its legs had an odd bend in them, like backwards knees, and I just screamed, "What is that?" And then it ran into the swamp, and I got the hell out of there. So then we left, but then we stopped the car on the side of the road as we got a little bit closer to our cabin, and by then it was dark. But, you know, Amy and I, we just sat there and we just cried. We just cried. We could not stop shaking. We talked about what we'd seen, and we both agreed we would just tell people we'd seen a bear. And to be honest, at that time, I honestly thought it was a deformed bear or a rabid wolf or something. Now today, I know it wasn't, and I'm no longer in denial, because man, what I saw, I just cannot understand or even explain. It was just plain wrong. Just very, very wrong.
Marianne and Amy are incredibly fortunate to have survived this encounter, and luckier still that Marianne found support from her son, who was able to help her finally process what had happened on that fateful night. Others have found support from the online community. There are many sites and forums where folks can share experiences, ask questions, and most importantly, spread urgent warnings to stay alert or stay indoors after a new sighting occurs. How do you stay informed about possible threats in your area? Are there any online communities you found to be especially valuable? Let us know in the comments below. Cryptozoologists have long held the responsibility of debunking such hoaxes, aiming to prove the validity of their research and the existence of the creatures they've become so fascinated by. We discussed British primatologist John Napier in a previous episode, whose Bigfoot investigations were published in his famous book, Bigfoot, the Yeti, and Sasquatch in Myth and Reality. But what about some of Napier's contemporaries? In today's world of cell phone cameras and satellite imagery, what role does cryptozoology play? Richard Freeman answers these very questions in his new book, In Search of Real Monsters. As the zoological director of the Center for Fortean Zoology, a professional cryptozoology organization based in England, Freeman has traveled around the globe hunting for monsters, from the Gobi Desert in search of the Mongolian death worm to the Brazilian rainforest looking for giant anacondas. Some people don't like to use the word monster, Freeman says, but it's derived from the word monstrous, meaning a revelation, which I think is quite an appropriate term for a cryptid. His latest book explores how cryptid stories develop, the Victorian obsession with the unknown, and why he believes the great days of zoology are not over. The world is not fully explored, Freeman says. Things are being discovered all the time. Loren Coleman is another contemporary pioneer whose name you might recognize. As the celebrated author of Cryptozoology A to Z, he's published dozens of books and even founded the International Cryptozoology Museum in Portland, Maine. To dig deeper into Loren Coleman and Richard Freeman's groundbreaking work, take advantage of the discounts in the video description below and explore a refreshing contemporary perspective on these long-debated topics. The idea of the fictional or mythical creature is always evolving alongside the progress of science and technology. Believe it or not, there are several animal species that were actually once thought to be mythical and were in fact referred to as cryptids. Creatures like the giant sea squid were the stuff of fairy tales, and the humble platypus, which we now know defies its mammal classification by laying eggs and spreading venom to predators, was widely believed to be a hoax for those very reasons. Who can say what science will reveal to us over the course of this century? Yesterday's myth may very well be tomorrow's truth. Just look at UFOs and other unidentified aerial phenomena. Or paranormal activity, the most experienced otherworldly phenomenon of all. If you'd like to see a future episode of Parks Unseen devoted exclusively to paranormal encounters at national parks, please let us know in the comments. In the meantime, stay tuned for a special edition episode of Parks Unseen, hosted by my good friend Astrid. She will guide you on a journey to a realm beyond, departing the earthly bounds and exploring a little deeper into the vast unknown. Thank you for joining us on this expedition into our enigmatic national parks. Until next time, stay curious and keep your eyes open. In the wild, you never know what secrets may be lurking, waiting to be unveiled in the great expanse of Parks Unseen.